The death drill tells the extraordinary story of Pitso Motaung. He was a young South African soldier who volunteered to serve with the Allies in the First World War. Now, through a tragic twist of fate, Pitso found himself on board the SS Mendi, a ship that sank off the Isle of Wight in February 1917. Over 600 soldiers were killed when the vessel sank on this day 100 years ago, most of whom were black South African troops heading for France to fight in World War I, a catastrophe that official history largely forgot. Dancing the Death Drill is a book that recounts the life of Pitso Motaung. It is a personal and political tale that spans continents and generations. Now, to talk to us about this book, we are joined by the journalist and author of the book, Fred Khumalo. A very good morning to you, sir, and welcome.
Yeah, it's an honor to be on this show to recount this beautiful and tragic story of the sinking of the Mendi.
Mm-hmm. Tell us your take in the book that you started writing and the focus, and why the focus on Pitso Motaung instead of the Mendi in general, of the story that was told.
Yeah, it so happens that by the time I started, there's so many commonalities between the narrative that was earlier related by Mam Brigalia Bam and my own story. I come from Durban. Unlike her, I knew what a ship was, and I knew the sea and so on. But the story of the Mendi was told to us through song. The same song that they sang back then, we sang it. And I recount it in the book. It inspired the whole tale.
I saw you nodding when she was telling that story.
Yes. But why did I decide to focus on one individual? By the way, Pitso Motaung is a fictional character. He didn't exist. But I decided to tell the story from this guy who is from the Free State, and he's of mixed parentage. Why did I do that? Because I wanted to use him as a springboard from which I launch questions, inquiry into issues of identity, into issues of race, and of course history. His father fought in the so-called Anglo-Boer War, which is now called the South African War. So yeah, he is central because of those things. He is a microcosm. His story is a microcosm of the stories that we are trying to tell.
Dancing the Death Drill, how did that title come about?
Oral history tells us that as the ship was going down, some soldiers threw themselves overboard. Others were stuck underneath the deck, and yet others were standing on deck and under the leadership of Reverend Isaac Joba, who was the chaplain on the ship. And he said, "Let us not die like cowards." I can read what he said, what he said to his guys as the ship was going down. It's a short segment. The Reverend said, "Be quiet and calm, my countrymen, for what is taking place now is exactly what you came to do. You are going to die, but that is what you came to do. Brothers, we are drilling the drill of death. I, a Xhosa, say, you are all my brothers, Zulus, Swazis, Pondos, Basutus. We die like brothers. We are the sons of Africa. Raise your cries, brothers, for though they made us leave our weapons at home, our voices are left with our bodies." And they started dancing, Basina Bashainlam, as the ship was going down. That is the story that has been told from generation to generation. And that is exactly the tale that Mam Brigala was telling.
The tale is being told, but the story hasn't been told enough. Is that correct? Or should more be done in order to tell us about the history of the black soldiers during the World War I and even II?
Yes, of course. I hope my book is a minor and humble contribution towards unraveling these narratives, these stories about the hidden histories of our country. The story, as you correctly point out, is only beginning now.
Yes.
Thankfully, this government, starting 1995, started recognizing the contribution that was made by these people. Hence, the highest order in this country for bravery is the order of the Mendi. It is very important. Yes. But now, these stories must be encapsulated in the history books that are being read by our children and our grandchildren at our schools.
That was going to be my next question. These stories and this history, it's never been told in all the history books that we've seen. So it should be part and parcel of it in order to make us more aware of it.
It is. It is. It deserves that kind of pride of place in our consciousness, in our minds, in the stories that we tell. It's amazing that we know so many stories about European history, American history, as opposed to our own stories. What happened to these guys? Yes. Because they were survivors, of course. What happened to them?
As you can see the background there, there's some pictures coming, live pictures coming from Durban. You can see this is the event taking place. And this is the part and parcel of the commemoration where we can be made aware as South Africans about what happened to the Mendi. But early on in the program, there was an interview with one of our reporters in Durban, interviewing Mr. M.K. Malafani, and he talked about the story of the Mendi. Let's take a look at that story and what he said earlier on the program.
Right.
Which is recorded by eyewitness accounts and even in a commission of inquiry that was held after the sinking, which commission, by the way, was summarily stopped when damning evidence was coming out pointing to deliberate sabotage and not an accident. And then it was then decided to stop the inquiry because it would demoralize soldiers on the war front, and that it would be reopened after the war. It never happened 100 years later. What actually happened is that Mendi was not a troop ship, it was a cargo ship commissioned for war. It used to ply the English water, from England to West Africa, named after the Mendi tribe of Sierra Leone. It was then reconfigured to accommodate at the top a semblance of troop ship for main cargo. But what it actually was meant to do was to carry all of South Africa's gold reserves, because at the time, fearing that the Germans were soon to overrun South Africa through Namibia, Southwest Africa, then it was sent out for safekeeping, during the German occupation of South Africa.
Yeah.
SS Mendi is the ship that carried South Africa's entire gold reserves. When SS Mendi arrived in England, around that morning of 4 a.m. or so, this is where the gold was offloaded in secrecy. And I believe what then happened is that one of the young, brave, adventurous African soldiers happened upon this offloading, witnessed it, and then everybody panicked. They could have tried to chase him, but then obviously he was able to go back and inform the rest of his men of what he had just witnessed. And then a decision, I believe, was taken that Mendi should not reach his destination. So when Mendi left the Isle of Wight on St. Catherine's Point to make his last journey across the channel to the seaport of Le Havre in France, its escort, SS Darrow, a much larger ship, eyewitness accounts tell us that it suddenly, for no apparent reason, slowed down until it disappeared in the fog. But Mendi continued on its slow journey in very calm waters. The English Channel is very shallow.
Yeah.
And then SS Darrow took a right turn, proceeded, and then when it was parallel with Mendi, it turned on Mendi and at full throttle rammed Mendi at a point where it knew that it would sink, and then it disappeared.
Hang on, Mr. Malafani. The general view is that this was an accident. Are you saying something different? Are you saying this was a deliberate act?
Mendi was not an accident. It was a deliberate sabotage to make sure that the men who witnessed, the boy or two, I'm not sure, who witnessed the offloading of South Africa's gold reserves. By the way, there is no recording that the gold ever came back to South Africa. They decided that all those blacks must die. That was the reason. And that is why SS Daro did not stop after it dumped Mendi and it disappeared. Not only that, the number of boats that had been assigned Mendi equal to the complement of the men. Some of them, only 3 were left to make sure that mostly only the white officers were able to escape the sinking Mendi.
How can you verify this?
It is recorded in history by eyewitness accounts by the Commission of Inquiry that was started and then stopped summarily.
Well, that was MK Malafani earlier on our program. Now, Mr. Khumalo, what do you make of that discussion? You wrote about the gold in your book, but is it a similar story, or is this perhaps a conspiracy theory?
I wouldn't want to dismiss Mr. Malafani's assertions, because I don't know who is using as a source, what his primary source is. What I can confirm is that there indeed was gold